Omajana Timranasya Chinanjala Shlakya Sakshan Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Nama Chichitaya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutaleshram Rupakadamyam Dadanti Svapadantikam Pandeham Shiru Shiyuda Padakam Nam Shirum Vaishnavam Sha Shirupam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakala Lita Shiv Shakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Rande Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamama Hari Priya Pankha Kalpa Visha Kripa Sindhu Visha Patnam Pavan Vyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatani Srila Prabhupada Ki. So today we arrived with our in-depth study of Bhagavad Gita, of Nectar of Instruction, at text 8. Before we continue, we pray for the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarani. In text 7, we discussed the holy name, the constant chanting of the holy name was the remedy for counteracting the jaundice of ignorance of the conditioned soul. So there we have heard about the chanting of the holy name, especially in terms of purification of the heart. The Prabhupada used the word jaundice, because if one has jaundice, a liver disease, and one eats sugar, then it tastes bitter. But if one continues to chant the holy name, then when one continues to eat sugar with that liver disease, then gradually the liver will be cured and the taste will come sweet again. The same with the chanting of the holy name. We chant holy name, and in the beginning we don't have taste for the chant. But as our heart becomes purified through the years, our taste increases. And if the heart is completely purified, then we come up text 8. Text 8 brings us beyond the platform of liberation. This is the platform of the pure devotees that who have attained the third stage in the chanting of the holy name. The first stage of the chanting of the holy name is that one chants with offenses, aparat. If one gives up one's offensive mentality gradually, one gives up the offensive mentality, one comes to the point of Namabhas, the second stage, the cleansing stage. And then the chanting of the holy name will take away our materialistic or material desires, our material disease. And when by the chanting we become completely purified, then we come to experience the pure name. So this verse is beyond liberation, but Prabhupada in the purport will speak about the process to come to that stage. Rupa Goswami. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tam Nama Rupa Sarita Disukirtanano. Smrito Kame Narasana Manasi Nichoja. Tistam Vachetananuragi Chananugami. Kalam Nayata Kilamitu Saram. We'll first go to the word for word translation. That of Lord Krishna. Nama, the holy name. Rupa, form. Charita Adi, character, pastimes and so on. So Kirtana, in discussing or chanting nicely. Anushmrityo, and in remembering. Kramena, gradually. Asana, the tongue. Manasi, and one's mind. Niyoja, engaging. Tistan, residing. Vraje, in Vraj, that, to Lord Krishna. Anuragi, attached. Jana, persons. Anugami, following. Kalam, time. Nayat, should utilize. Akilam, full. Iti, thus. Upadesa, of advice or instruction. Saram, the essence. Now we have here the purport. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraj, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees, who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So, in this verse, you have different parts. So, one should utilize one's time 24 hours, nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name. First of all, we cannot do it. Only when you come on the liberated platform, you can do that. Or you can come close to that. Haridas Thakur came close to that. He chanted 22 hours every day. 20 and 1.5 hours to take some prasad, some food, and 1.5 hours for sleeping. So he came close to that always chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name. Now, it says transcendental form, remembering one's transcendental qualities and eternal pastimes. We have to be careful here. We are speaking about self-realized souls, those who are beyond liberation. There are 4 stages beyond liberation: Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, and Prema. These are different levels of realization. When one comes in Ruchi Ashakti, Krishna will reveal himself, will reveal his form, his qualities, his pastimes, and one will spontaneously think of it. But in our stage of Vaidhisana Bhakti, we cannot do that. That would be a mental activity. Prabhupada said, you chant the holy name is Krishna, you hear the holy name. No mind between. No trying to think of Krishna, whatever. No. The holy name is Krishna. You see it by hearing, just hearing. In Vaidhisana Bhakti. In Vaidhisana Bhakti, one cannot follow this advice here. When one becomes liberated and remembering becomes spontaneous, one can cultivate it. That's good. But when it doesn't become spontaneous, artificially trying to think of it, that will hamper one's progress in Vaidhisana Bhakti, or it may hamper one. That, because what is most important? Artificially remembering Krishna or concentrating one's mind on holy name? The holy name is Krishna. It is the same. That. So I'm trying to explain this first here, because if you don't have studied deeply the first seven texts of this Upadeshamrita, this text number 8 may be misunderstood. That. So in this way, one should reside in Vraj. That if you always think of Krishna's pastimes, it's like residing in Vraj. If you always think of Krishna and his pastimes. That Srila Prabhupada internally felt always connected with Krishna and Vrindavan. He left Vrindavan to come to the West, but he did not accept the American mentality. He stayed internally, remained rooted in Vrindavan. That, so one should follow in the footsteps of the loved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. That's the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. If one comes liberated after a few 40, 50 years of chanting, or after a few lifetimes, that depends. That if one becomes liberated, then one's relationship with Krishna begins to be revealed by Krishna. You become attracted to serve Krishna in a certain way. Only when you feel that experience, you can take to Raganuga Bhakti. Following the footsteps of Krishna's devotees who have the same mood. Read about them, associate with them, and then you become deeply attached to it. That so this is for the neophyte. This is a very tricky verse, easily misunderstood. But Prabhupada in the purport speaks about the process or to come to that stage. So he says our mind may be one's enemy or friend. One has to train the mind to become his friend. That's also what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Bandhu atmatmanastasya yanatma vatmana chitaha anatmanastu satrutve vartataiva vartatatmaiva satruvat. That Krishna says, one who has conquered this mind, the mind is his friend, is his best friend. But one who has failed to do so, his mind will be the greatest enemy. So we have to turn an enemy into a friend. That so unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga, also bhakti yoga, it's a waste of time. We will not be able to make spiritual advancement. That if we cannot control our mind, we live with an enemy. And that so yes, because if the mind is uncontrolled, we become godas, we become the servant of the senses, that of the senses and the mind. That so yes, this is very important to understand that point. And that but when we conquer the mind, what does it mean, conquering the mind? Conquering the mind means we agree to follow the dictations of Krishna from within the heart. That Krishna is in our heart. It gives us dictations. We don't hear them. That because we are too busy with many other things, lust, anger, greed, and so on. That, but Krishna gives kindly the same instructions in Bhagavad Gita. So if we read Bhagavad Gita, then we know what Krishna wants. That so real yoga practice means following the instructions of Krishna from within the heart. That so if one surrenders to Krishna, then naturally one starts to follow Krishna's instructions. But this mind is very tricky. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only of this life, of many, many lives of the past. Sometimes they come up in dreams. In dreams, suddenly we visit becoming very strange situations. But nothing happens by chance. This is all in our subconsciousness. When it comes up, the subconsciousnness is stored within the subtle body. When we leave the gross body, the subtle body continues to exist until it's spiritualized, until one is liberated. So all these deep impressions, subconscious impressions, are in the mind, and they can come up every moment. And that. So therefore we have to be careful not to make new impressions in this life that will make us that are dangerous for our Krishna consciousness. What is dangerous for Krishna consciousness? How to avoid this? Is to follow text 2 of Nectar of Instructions. Atyar payasascha prajalpa niyamaha. Sangatyara salalyam sat satpir bhaktir vinashati. 6 things that destroy bhakti. Eating too much. Eating too much means sleeping too much, means dreaming too much, coming into ignorance, lust, anger appears in your mind. That prayas, our over endeavor for material things, which are useless for the soul. We need only, and also for the body, we need only a minimum to exist. Atyaharas prayasasya prajalpa. Prajalpa means speaking about sense gratification and hearing others speaking about sense gratification. That creates nasty impressions in the mind. So we have all learned that in the previous verses, what not to do. But unfortunately, we have gone to millions of births and we have done that in previous lives. And that's still in our subconsciousness. And Prabhupada said, not only this life, but many, many lives in the past. These impressions come from there. At least in this life, we should stop to store these sinful impressions. Stop it. So these impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produce contradictory pictures, also during your dreams. In this way, the mind's function can become dangerous for a conditioned soul. That students of psychology are aware of the mind's various psychological changes. So instead of these sinful, nasty impressions, we should store positive impressions in our mind. Impressions of the beauty of Krishna, of his pastimes, of cooking for Krishna, of offering to Krishna, of service to Krishna, everything related to Krishna. By reading about Krishna, by hearing about Krishna. Most important, that's how we store positive impressions. During the Bhagavatam class, Bhagavad Gita class, we must fuel our mind with positive transcendental energy. Because whatever your mind has been attached to and absorbed, that will determine your consciousness at the time of death. At the time of death, one remembers previous lives, all one's previous attachments in this life. So it is said when many people who had near-death experience, they said it was like in a few seconds my entire life went before me. So what the mind has been most attached to during one's life, the mind will be attached to at the time of death. So we should use our life to create this attachment to Krishna. And then in a difficult moment, as death, we will take shelter of Krishna. Because when the time of death comes, all the organs are shutting down. It's very disturbing. Where will the mind take shelter? Therefore, we should prepare our life is a preparing for death. That for the last consciousness to be attached to Krishna. Because Krishna says in 8.6 here, Bhagavad Gita, Yam yam vapi smram bhavantam tante kalivram tam tamavete kaunteya satadad bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So Prabhupada writes, at the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity creates the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. So people die in a miserable condition. The man thinks of his wife out of attachment, and his next body will be the body of a woman. It's the subtle form is already in the subtle body. And the subtle body will be transported by the super soul to the next destination. And the soul and this subtle body will enter the semen of a man injected into the womb of a woman, and there around this subtle body that form, the gross body is created in the womb of the mother. But the subtle form is already there. We created it per last thoughts. Subtle is the most powerful. And the most powerful is the spiritual. The more subtle, the more powerful. The soul in this body is the life in this body. It is the most powerful. So that process is explained in Bhagavad Gita. In summary, in the 15th chapter, in much more detail in the 3rd canto. Much more detail. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam Shechvelaka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manasastan Indriyani Pragatistani Karsati. So the living entities are my fragmental, eternal separated parts. So we are eternal, separated from Krishna, a spiritual spark. Krishna says eternally separated. And in conditioned life, this spark is struggling very hard with the 6 senses and the mind and the body. But then, how do we go from one body to another? Sariram vama avapnoti yashap ukamatishvara. Shritvatani samyati vayoganda ivasayat. The living entity in this material world carries its different conception from one life to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus one takes one body and quits it to take another. It's very clear. It's a super soul in the heart, Paramatma, who brings the soul and the subtle body and all these impressions to the womb, to the semen of a man and the womb of a mother, which is suitable to produce the next body. Suitable to produce the next body, which is in agreement with our last thoughts at the time of death in the previous life. There's a connection. So Prabhupada said, if one has made his conscience like that of a cat and dog, he's sure to change to cat's or dog's body. And if we see Krishna conscious, it will be transferred to Krishna Loka, the spiritual world, and associate with Krishna. So our present body and our present activities are the background of the next body. It is the subtle body which carries the conceptions to the next body and develops another body in the next life. This is the process of transmigration from one body to another, and struggling while in the body is called Karshati. Prabhupada says, yeah. And then in the womb of the next mother, the structure of the body is there already in a subtle form. Like one constructs a skyscraper, first they make a metal construction. So it's there. But then you have to fill it up. So the metal construction is already there. And material nature works around it and built the body. That by that we take another gross body. We get again a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, sense of touch, script all around the mind. Script around the mind. That's important to understand. The mind is a center that, and thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Yeah, that's our position. So consciousness, our consciousness, spiritual consciousness means pure consciousness. But when pure consciousness is mixed with colors, it changes. So similarly, our original consciousness is pure because the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. But if one's consciousness becomes adulterated by some type of material activity, passion or ignorance, then we get in next life a corresponding body. There are 400,000 species mentioned in the Vedic literature. And Krishna adds, the foolish cannot understand this process of transmigration of the soul. I cannot understand what body they enjoy now. This body that we have is the result of our consciousness in previous life at the moment of death. But when our eyes are trained with knowledge, this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we can see this. That seeing that is called jnana saksha. It requires a great amount of knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and similar literature, heard from a bona fide spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada writes. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, they can see that the spirit is different from the body. And the body is changing in so many ways. But the person within remains unchanged. Then we can understand how we are suffering in material existence. So we should come out of this and become Krishna conscious and liberate ourselves and go to the spiritual world. Continue reading. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create a subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. Yes. So all these thoughts during our lives is a constant preparation for our next body. That's a different way of seeing life. I'm cultivating consciousness for a next body. So I have to be careful. Where do I put my consciousness in? Do I really have to go in this and that? What is my priority? Hearing about Krishna, chanting, or my business, getting money. Money, sweeter than, honey. That if the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial at the time of death, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, it can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka, Vrindavan. So every moment in life is an opportunity to train our mind in Krishna consciousness, to prepare ourselves for that. So this process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advised devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Prabhupada said also in Bhagavad Gita, one should arrange our life, our day, all our time, 24 hours a day, organize our day in such a way that we cannot do anything else than thinking of Krishna. So similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and to taste only Krishna Prasad. Srila Rupa Goswami further advised this Tamvraja, one should live in Vrindavan or any part of Vrajabhumi. Vrajabhumi, or the land of Vrindavan, is supposed to be 84 krosas in area. 1 krosa equals 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. This way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. This is further elucidated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishna smaram jam sasya prashtam nitya samihitam tatat katarata so koyat vasam vajam sada. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vraj and always engage in Krishnam smaram janam sasya prashtam, the remembrance of Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the personality of Godhead. So when we become advanced in devotional service, then we should try to always reside in the transcendental realm of Vraj by reading about the residence of Vrindavan, also by going to Vrindavan sometimes, that during Parikram Vrindavan, Vrajmandal Parikram, 1 month seeing all the places where Krishna had his pastimes. And by following the footsteps of such associates means we are going to develop the same attachment to Krishna. That under their guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of God. Now, there's, of course, I'm just reminding you, we are discussing Upadesamrita, Nectar of Instructions, which is in 11 verses, a summary of Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada has published Nectar of Devotion, but it's only what he published was only a summary study of Nectar of Devotion. The complete Nectar of Devotion is about 2,000 verses. Banu Maharaj has translated it. You can read all the verses. And therefore, it's natural that Prabhupada quotes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the original big edition of 12295 Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Seva Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena Chatrahi, Tadbhava Lipsuna Karya Vracha Dokanusarata. In the transcendental realm of Raj, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar of that of his associates, and one should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. So this verse says the same thing. This method is applicable at the stage of sadhana, both in the state of sadhana, spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization, when a siddha purush or a spiritual perfected soul. So that means you can read about Krishna from Krishna book when you are in the Vaidhi sadhana stage. Vaidhi sadhana means one follows the instructions of the spiritual master to chant Hare Krishna, to engage in deity worship, to hear about Krishna, and so on. That is the state of practice. And that, but one who has got realization, who has liberated and has realized that he is a servant of Krishna, that he has self-realized, he will do the same thing, hearing about Krishna, that serving Krishna, chanting Krishna's names. So they do the same thing. Whether one is a beginner or a siddha purush, a spiritual perfect soul. That means that the means and the goal are the same. They are doing the same. The chanting will purify you and bring you to the goal. And when you're at the goal, you will be chanting. You are doing because these are the eternal activities of the residents in the spiritual world. That so we are doing the activities of the liberated souls in the spiritual world. Now we have a comment of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse: one who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and his name, form, qualities, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. That is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. So this is important. That Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is very directly. Give up all material motives, not easy. It takes many, many years for us. But I said, give it up and train your mind, start the training in these progressive regulative principles. So you have the negative regulative principles, giving up sinful activities, but it's about the positive ones. Concentrate, that's what you should do. Chanting, remembering Krishna, his form, qualities, pastimes, and so on. That so we can, that remembrance will come spontaneous when we become attached, and therefore we should hear regularly about Krishna and his pastimes. Read Krishna book every evening, like and Bhagavad Gita during the day and Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning. Then you will develop a taste for such things. It's just the same principle always. What is the principle of becoming contaminated in this world? Dayate Vishyapumsan Sanghaste Shivajayate Sangha Sanyayatema Kama Kama Koda Vijayate. Koda Bhavati Sama Sama Smiti Vibramam. That Smiti Brahmsa Buddhinyaso Buddhanasa Pranashati. That's the process of becoming contaminated in this material nature and fall down. It starts with dayate, meditation. You meditate on something and then you create attachment. And then you create expectation. I'm going to enjoy. The enjoyment does not come and you become angry. And that your anger comes in your mind. And then when you are angry, you lose your intelligence. And your attachment to do these nefarious, sinful activities, it increases. But it starts with dayati, meditation. Spiritual life started also with dayati, meditation. But on what? On the positive things. Chanting, remembering Krishna, remembering his form, qualities, pastime, and that will liberate you. So that should be our business. We have heard the 4 loving exchanges, 6 loving exchanges in text 4. Offering prasad, receiving prasad, and just revealing one's mind in confidence with another devotee and hearing another devotee remembering and speaking about Krishna to you. Then offering gifts in Krishna consciousness, Krishna conscious gifts, receiving Krishna conscious gifts. It's all meant to develop this attachment that we see the deity every morning during the morning program. It's meant to become your mind to become attached to the deity. I remember I did for many years Mangalarti at Radhadesh here every day and seeing Radha Gopinath. It gives an impression in your mind and you become attached to that impression. And that's positive impression. And that develops by hearing about Krishna's qualities, his sweetness, his pastime. And then if one's mind day after day after day is filled with that, then the remembrance of that will come spontaneously and help you to go to liberation. Of course, in the higher stages, Krishna will reveal his form to you. But it's beyond liberation when Krishna reveals it. When I joined this movement, I was thinking, God is a blue cowboy. Why don't have all the other religions? No one has the realization there that God is a blue cowboy. How can that be? But it's beyond liberation. Where is the teaching in all the other religions about how to attain liberation? To attain liberation, you must first know that you are a spirit soul different from the body. Where is that transcendental knowledge in all the other religions? It's not there. How can they attain liberation? Very difficult. But this is beyond liberation. Where Krishna reveals his form. So this is very important. In the next paragraph, the process to attain this revelation within the heart, this is explained in terms of the chanting of the holy name and hearing Krishna Katha. We will discuss that next time. So, any questions on what we discussed so far?
Thank you, Swami. Regarding the meditation on the positive on Krishna, that's in contrast to meditation on the absolute, let's say, emptiness Brahma type meditation, or is that different?
That the absolute truth has three features. That Vedantas tattvavitas tattvam jnanam advayam rameti paramatmeti bhagavam iti sapyate. The learned transcendentalists have concluded that the absolute truth has three features. Brahman, spiritual energy. Then Paramatma means the local aspect of God in the heart, the super soul, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And the third aspect is Bhagavan, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these three are related. That the Paramatma, Krishna in the heart, is an expansion, or the Holy Spirit is an expansion of Krishna, of God. And Brahman is a spiritual effulgence. So you have this, mostly the jnanis, the yogis, they meditate on Brahman because they don't have the higher realization of Bhagavan. But it's not, in this meditation, the full features of the Supreme Lord are not revealed. Only Sat and Chit portion. Sat means eternal. We are eternal, Brahman, like we are Krishna's energy. That Brahman. And Chit aspect is the transcendental knowledge that we are spirit, nothing to do with matter, eternal. So they meditate on that and they get that realization, but that's not sufficient to get liberation. For liberation, one needs final liberation. And going back to the spiritual world where we belong, we need Bhagavan realization. But when you meditate on Krishna and Bhagavan, that includes meditation on Krishna in the heart and Brahman. So that is the highest. That's also explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam ape sarvatam matyanam pratmam shadavam bachateyamam same yuktatame mutaha. That the yogi who is united with me in love within the heart is the highest yogi. He realizes that this Paramatma is an expansion of Krishna and that they are not different. But
Thank you so much.
All this requires a lot of knowledge. And that, so those who are meditating on the Brahman effulgence of Krishna, or the super consciousness, or in New Age you have so many names of that. It's also nice, but it will not bring you to the ultimate realization. It's a part of the Supreme Lord. That to get transcendental realization, one must come to the highest yoga, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti. Good, something else?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Maharaj, earlier in the class, you mentioned the purity of our soul is decided that we hear the instructions of Krishna in our heart. So many times we get the voice in our heart, but how would we know that is, Krishna speaking or a concoction of our mind?
Yeah, and as long as we are not on the transcendental platform free from material desires, then we are covered by the mind. But sometimes we may feel in the heart something and wonder, is that Krishna's indication, or is that my mind? That the most easy way to check this is whether these instructions from Krishna in the heart are the same instructions as Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. If it are the same instructions, then probably it's Krishna within the heart. But Krishna guides also in different ways from within the heart. If you do sinful activities, you feel unhappy afterward. And maybe some guilt comes up, and so that is Krishna saying within the heart is not good. If you do selfless activities, giving charity, helping other people without asking something in return, then it gives some satisfaction within the heart. Is Krishna saying, yes, that's good. So that's also there. That's called intuition. That, but we have to be careful that not accept the feelings of the mind as genuine instructions of Krishna. That would be foolishness. That's too dangerous. So any other question? Good. Then we will stop here, and tomorrow we have Srimad Bhagavatam class. Looking forward to see you again. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
His Holiness Bhakti Prabhu Maharaj ki jai. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj.